Connect. Okay, now I can let them in. Oh, okay. Where are you? Come back up. There you are. Emit all. There we are. Hello, and sorry we're a little bit late. We were waiting on a few more people, but they haven't shown up. So, but welcome to everybody that is here. We are so glad that you can join us. Tonight we are going to talk about cholesterol, statins, and inflammation in a way that finally makes sense without fear and without confusion and without medical jargon. This isn't medical advice, this is education only, clarity and root cause understanding. So you can hopefully finally feel empowered when it comes to your health. And we will have a Q&A at the end as well. So if you do have any questions, you can find a way to us. Okay, moving on. So first, I'm going to introduce myself. I am originally from Devon. But now I live in wet West Wales, but it's very beautiful up here. We love it. I have a partner and two children. I home educate my two children, and our bigger vision is to travel Europe in our van as a family and eventually buy our own land and build a life centered around freedom, nature, and community, and also health. Uh, I was running a coffee shop for 7 years, and then all the challenges around COVID hit. So I shifted my focus fully to home educating my two children and building an holistic, health-focused freedom business from home. It's something that I'm extremely passionate with. I started off sort of researching everything about for myself and for my children, and then slowly started supporting family and friends and moved on from there. I have been a wellness advocate for doTERRA for nearly 2 years and more recently become an independent partner with Sensino, bringing foundational health, testing and natural tools into my work. My passion is empowering people to reclaim their health. Through education, personalised support, root cause understanding, natural tools, testing and sustainable lifestyle changes, I help people see what's actually happening within the body so they can make informed choices, feel stronger, and take back control to their health and freedom. And then here's Sonja.
All right, hello everybody, and welcome to this live workshop today. I'm originally from Germany and moved to Plymouth in 2020. And I have quite a diverse background ranging from psychology, research, and also holistic healing. And I'm really interested in how the mind and the body work together and really looking at the whole person and not just as at isolated system as is often done in the medical field. I really like to get the best out of people and really enable them to live their best lives. And I launched 3 businesses this year during my maternity leave. I got the Whole Souls Private Members Club, and I'm also affiliated with both doTERRA and Zinzino. And my focus is really to help people to change their lives. So, like Deanna said, we really try to empower people to understand their health better and see how they could maybe use some natural solutions to feel better in their bodies and lead a better life. Right, we could then go to the next slide. There we go. Starting right away with our topic today, cholesterol. We just want to say a few things about what cholesterol actually is, because there is a lot of misunderstanding, and also the literature is quite complex in that field with a lot of names and definitions that can be quite confusing. So first, let's think about what is cholesterol. We often have this fear image of cholesterol, thinking, oh my God, it's the substance that can be really harmful for us, especially when you find talk about the bad cholesterol. However, the body actually makes a lot of cholesterol. Every cell in your body can produce cholesterol. And your liver actually creates 5 to 6 times the amount of cholesterol in the body that you eat. So it's very difficult to overeat and fill your cholesterol that way. Your body actually produces it because you need it. It's especially essential for the brain. So 25% of all cholesterol in your body is stored in the brain, even though the brain is only 2% of the body mass. So that really shows the brain has a very, very large need for cholesterol. We really need that to make synapses, so which is the connections between the neurons in the brain. So you really need that to think clearly, to have a good memory, for example, but also to heal the brain. So when we talk about bad cholesterol, that's often the LDL, and then the good cholesterol, it's the HDL. But actually, when we talk about cholesterol, what it's actually referred to is a lipoprotein. So it's a little transporter that carries fats around the bloodstream, because fat and cholesterol can't freely float in the blood. So it's a little transporter that goes around the blood and then delivers cholesterol and other fats in the body cells. And it's really a cycle. So LDL is the one that delivers the cholesterol to the body tissues. And then the HDL is the one that's bringing everything back to get reabsorbed into the body. So we really need both at the end of the day. They play together. Cholesterol is available in food, especially eggs, meat, dairy, shellfish. But as we said, the body really produces 5 to 6 times the amount of cholesterol that we usually eat. So the idea that if you eat too many eggs, you will raise your cholesterol level, that is really not supported by science. So your dietary cholesterol levels hardly affect your measured cholesterol levels in the blood. And just to say, this is something that we will talk about again a little bit later in the presentation. The guidelines in the UK are actually that a level of 4.5 is considered high. So that's a total cholesterol level. And then everything above 7.5 is considered a severe level. And usually you would be prescribed statins, or some type of intervention would be suggested at a level of 7.5, but already at 4.5, there might be some intervention be considered to reduce the cholesterol levels. However, these cholesterol levels are only one part of the picture. So we will also talk about inflammation, about how hormones interact with cholesterol, the thyroid and the liver that play a massive role in cholesterol and fat metabolism. Stress is something we will talk about. And these are really factors, lifestyle factors, for example, that you can change yourself. And hopefully by the end of this workshop today, you will have a much better idea on what is the cholesterol level, but also how is it influenced and how you can take control of those. All right, is there anything you would like to add, Deanna?
Nope, I think you've covered most
Good,
of that.
then I would pass it over to you again for the next slide.
Okay, we're going to talk about fatty acids. So because this one is the biggest missing piece when we talk about cholesterol and inflammation, the natural fats versus the man-made fats. There are fats your body understands and fats your body actually struggles with. So your natural fats, which things are like olive oil, coconut oil, grass-fed meats, eggs, avocado, your body actually recognizes these fats and they break them down properly and uses them for hormone brain health and repairing cells. These fats do not cause inflammation by themselves. The problem fats, these are the man-made fats, the oils, the seed oils, the processed oils that are in almost every packaged food and what most of us actually cook with, and like the margarines, the sunflower oils. These actually damage cells and they raise inflammation, and that inflammation is what pushes cholesterol completely out of balance. It's not the actual fat itself. So the omega-3 to omega-6, this is the important part. Omega-3 and omega-6 are essential, and we need both of them. But the ratio is everything. You need omega-3 to calm inflammation and support hormones, uh, brain function, cell repair, and omega-6 supports the immune system. But too much omega-6 from all the processed foods and oils today fuels inflammation. You can look at it almost like omega-6 being the fire and omega-3 being the water. But when the omega-6 is burning too high, the omega-3 can't keep that under control. So why most people are out of balance, and everyone gets caught out, we are eating 20 to 50 times more omega-6 and the bad omega-6 than the body can actually handle without even realizing it. Meanwhile, omega-3 has become almost non-existent. And when that ratio is off, the inflammation quietly builds up in the body, even if your diet does look healthy. So the plant-based omega-3 problem, and this is something that hardly ever gets told or spoken about. Most people can't actually convert plant omega-3, like chia seeds, flax seeds, into the form the body needs, which is the EPA and the DHA. So you can be eating the healthy fats, but still be massively deficient. And that's why so many people feel inflamed, even though they're doing everything correctly. So this is why cholesterol rises for so many people. It isn't the actual fat, it's the inflammation. And when the cells are inflamed, cholesterol gets sent out as a repair tool to fix the balance. The inflammation calms, the cholesterol no longer needs to rise. Do you have anything to add to that, Sonja?
Um, that's all good. Just because the question came in the chat, so
Okay.
we would have the questions at the end because we're recording the presentation and then we stop the recording and then we have a confidential space to answer any questions that you might
Okay. We'll move
have.
on.
Right.
Ready for the next one? There we are. Over to you, Sonja.
Okay. Then to talk a little bit more about how does cholesterol and fats play together and how does it relate to heart health? Because I think a lot of people are not too worried about cholesterol in and of itself, but the connection to potential heart issues, heart attacks, and strokes. That is the one that gets people's attention. And that's why we think, oh, the cholesterol is so bad and we need to reduce it. So, this traditional hypothesis, which the data really does not support overall, but which is still in a lot of people's minds. And I think a lot of doctors have also been taught this hypothesis in their training, which is the idea that we eat foods that are high in cholesterol or high in saturated fats. That raises our LDL or the bad cholesterol and also the triglycerides, so the overall cholesterol level. That then causes the cholesterol to stick to the arteries, which leads to atherosclerosis, so chronic inflammation and narrowing of the arteries. And they get then so narrow that they will get blocked at one point, which could then cause, depending on where it happens in the body, which artery could lead to a heart attack or a stroke. So I think this is a hypothesis that many people believe to be true, but there are actually quite a few issues with that hypothesis. As I said, overall, the data does not support this. For example, as we mentioned, dietary cholesterol actually has little effect on blood cholesterol. And the same is also true for saturated fats. So the intake of saturated fats does not raise blood cholesterol levels. Also, when we look at studies in terms of heart health and heart disease, the intake of saturated fats in and of itself does not actually lead to heart disease. What is important, and these are factors that are often not taken into account, is the inflammation, the general inflammation in the body. Atherosclerosis is defined as a chronic inflammatory condition. So we need to look at what causes inflammation in the body. We need to look at oxidative stress. We need to look at sugar intake and blood sugar spikes, for example. We need to look at stress, whether it's emotional stress or physical stress that we encounter in everyday life, which can then lead to hormonal imbalances, for example. And as Deanna just explained, omega-3 status is important. What the traditional hypothesis might get backwards is that cholesterol might not be the culprit that causes your arteries to narrow, but that it's actually a protective response of the body. So if you think about it, if your artery is damaged in a way, and then the body employs cholesterol as well as other fats, for example, to use as kind of a band-aid to fix that damage in the artery. So it might be a protective response rather than an issue in and of itself. So the question is, why is there an issue in the artery? Why might that be weak, for example? So this is something we will look into. It's also highly relevant because at the moment, around 5 million people in the UK are using statins, and up to 15 million are considered for statins, and where it's said, oh, it might help their overall health and their heart health if they were taken statins. And we will obviously look at that in a little bit more detail. One issue in general is that we often look at symptoms, for example, the cholesterol level, but we might not be tackling the actual root cause of the problem. Right, and we'll go to the next slide. So, as mentioned before, what you eat only has a modest influence on cholesterol levels. Diet can be important, and we will give a few tips later on what diet we would recommend to control inflammation, for example. But just for cholesterol in and of itself, the diet really does not make that much of a difference because your body already produces so much cholesterol. Oftentimes, saturated fats and cholesterol are almost used synonymously, which is probably the case because they are found in similar foods, especially in animal derived foods like meat and dairy, but they're actually are different at a molecular level, and they also behave quite differently in the body. Yeah? So these two should not be interchanged. Also, what research has shown is that if people were put on a diet that consisted of high amount of fat, but mainly whole foods, so very little amount of processed foods and seed oils, then actually they had a lower LDL, so the bad cholesterol, lower triglyceride levels, what they call VLDL, and also better ratios of the good cholesterol, which obviously goes against this notion that, oh, the more saturated fats you eat, the worse your cholesterol will become, or the higher your cholesterol level. So there are the Framingham study, for example, which I mentioned in a moment. It's one of the biggest and longest running studies in medicine. And they have shown that actually saturated and fat intake in general can help with cholesterol levels. So the other factors that we've been mentioning, and where we will be giving some tips later on as well, and how they can be tackled, is what is the overall inflammation status in the body? How well does the liver function? How is the thyroid health? Is there hypo or a hypofunction or hyperfunction, for example, of the thyroid? Because the thyroid is the master gland that controls the whole cholesterol metabolism. Yeah, so if the thyroid is not working properly, there will be either very high or very low cholesterol levels. We need to look at changes in hormones. That could be, for example, for women, the menopause, but also the stress hormones, especially cortisol, can influence a whole host of body functions in a negative way. And the omega-3 to 6 balance. Right, can go to the next slide, please. Also, just one aspect to mention, because there is still this idea of, oh, maybe high cholesterol levels might be damaging for health. And obviously, the hardest and most important outcome we can look at in health studies is overall mortality. So how are overall cholesterol levels related to mortality? We need to distinguish here between men and women because there are sex differences in the relationship between cholesterol levels and overall mortality. But what some studies found actually is that for women, the healthiest levels that are associated with the lowest mortality is 5 to 6. And this is the unit that we usually use everywhere in the world, apart from the US. The US has a different unit that needs to be converted. But levels of 5 to 6 seem to be the healthiest. And the worst levels, which were associated with the highest overall mortality, were levels below 4. Higher levels in women were not associated with any worse health outcomes or mortality. For men, the pattern was similar. 5 to 6 was the healthiest ratio, and mortality was worse when the levels were below 4 or above 6. I should mention that in this study, it wasn't distinguished levels, for example, 6 to 7 and then higher. Everything after or higher than 6 was considered high. So they didn't really look at increments and how the levels would change in terms of mortality. But it seems for both men and women, 5 to 6 is an ideal level to have. Also, the Framingham study that I already mentioned before, they found something quite counterintuitive if you believe that traditional diet hypothesis, which is when they decreased cholesterol and they followed people for 10 years in these results, is that they found quite striking increases, and that's relative risk increases of over 400% in overall mortality and over 500% in cardiovascular death. And that was for every decrease of 1 unit in cholesterol levels. So what these studies showed is that a very low level of overall cholesterol is not actually something you might want to achieve because it is associated with a higher rate of overall mortality. And in this one study, also with cardiovascular mortality. So we need cholesterol, really. So cholesterol should maybe be more our friend than our foe, because we really need it for the brain. As we mentioned, the brain is one of the main consumers in the body of cholesterol. We need it to regulate our hormonal system. So it interacts with the thyroid, with the liver. It's related to our immune system. It's needed in the cells to repair. And as mentioned, it can repair the arteries if there's any damages. So we really don't want levels that are too low. Now we want to have that happy medium, ideally. And if you remember before, I said levels over 7.5 are considered high. That would be quite in line with these findings. But considering a level of 4.5 already as a risk threshold is quite contrary to these findings, because as 5 to 6 is the ideal level, we wouldn't really want to push people below 4.5, because that doesn't seem to be the level where people are at their healthiest, both men and women. Right, unless you have anything to add, Deanna, we could then go to the next slide.
No, I think you've covered everything. I'll move on. Oh, there we go.
All right, and now on to the statins. So most people, when they have their cholesterol levels checked out, might be put on statins. Sometimes they're also put on statins even without any cholesterol checkups. It might just be someone goes to the GP for high blood pressure, be given statins anyway, because they might have age or other risk factors. And then they might say, oh yeah, why not add the statins as well? Why is it important to look at statins? So we first want to look at what do they actually do, and then we look a bit at the effectiveness, but also potential risks with associated with statins. So statins basically interrupt the creation of cholesterol. As we said, most of the cholesterol is directly produced in the liver, and the statins interfere with the enzyme, or in the enzyme process that creates the cholesterol in the liver. One issue with that is that the same pathway to create cholesterol is also used to produce the coenzyme Q10. So statins automatically interfere with creation of cholesterol or the synthesis of cholesterol, but also with the creation of coenzyme Q10 in the body. This happens then to lower the production of the triglycerides and increases the receptors for LDL. So the body basically tries to make up for the lower levels of cholesterol, because the body needs cholesterol, and then it realizes, oh, I'm getting less of it, so I'm creating more receptors to take more of the cholesterol that is in the blood into the cells to still be able to supply the cells with an adequate level of cholesterol. This obviously lowers the LDL in the blood because the body needs to absorb more and more of it. So statins do effectively lower the number of LDL, the bad cholesterol, but it doesn't really treat the issue. So if someone has a cholesterol level of, say, 20, which is really, really high, we still don't know, why did the body do that? Why does the body produce such a high level of cholesterol? What does it try to compensate for? And this is where the holistic perspective really comes in, looking at the different body systems and seeing where is there a dis-ease, where is a dysregulation, an imbalance happening, and where do we need to intervene to naturally get those cholesterol levels back into balance. There are studies that show that statins help to prevent some cardiovascular events, or that it can help with cardiovascular health. Those results, however, seem to be also from a side effect of the statins, which is that it it can help to reduce oxidative stress. So it can have an anti-inflammatory effect on the body. So the question is, what is the root cause? And here again, we come back to hormones, liver, thyroid, body, all of the things we will discuss a bit later on. But first, let's take another look at the statins on the next slide. So interestingly, when we look at statins, we again need to look separately at men and women. For women, studies overall show that they do not benefit from taking statins. And that is anybody, whether they have had a previous heart condition or not. So for women, there seems to be no benefit on overall mortality or on the prevention of heart disease if they take statins. For men, we need to distinguish between men who have had a history of heart disease and those who didn't. So healthy men who have no heart issues were not shown to have a reduced mortality when taking statins. For men who do have an existing heart disease, there is an effect. And here I just want to briefly talk about relative versus absolute risk. Usually in the medical literature, when we hear about risk reduction, they talk about relative risk reduction. The rarer an event is, the more dramatic a risk reduction might sound. For statins, and those are the most supportive studies, the relative risk reduction is up to 30%, while the absolute risk is up to 3.3%. And just to put that into perspective, so for this one group, men with a pre-existing heart disease, if they take statins for 1 year, they will live 2 days longer. Yeah, so that is that effectiveness put into a real world outcome. So this is the effect we get from statins. Yeah? So they do have, for a certain group of people, some effectiveness. Now we look at the not so nice side, and that is the side effect of statins. Some of them might be quite rare, some of them are quite common, and not all of them people might know about. So one is, statins should absolutely not be taken in pregnancy because they dramatically increase the risk of birth defects and very severe birth defects. So it's an absolute no-go in pregnancy. Plus, we have seen it doesn't have an effect, an overall mortality on women anyway, so there is no reason really for them to take them. What is often reported is muscle issues, can be pain, weakness, cramps, in very severe and very rare cases, a complete muscle breakdown. Then brain and memory effects can happen, ranging from confusion, brain fog, forgetfulness, just problems concentrating. Nerve effects ranging from polyneuropathy, tingling, dizziness. We can see effects on mood and behavior, that people become more irritable, they can become more aggressive, depressive symptoms can happen, sleep problems. And a lot of these issues can be explained by the fact that statins deplete or disrupt essential nutrients and minerals and vitamins that we need in our body. Examples here are the coenzyme Q10 that I already mentioned before, but also things like vitamin D, vitamin K, vitamin E, B vitamins as well, selenium, magnesium. Magnesium, for example, is very important for the muscles, so for relaxing the muscles, and it's also involved in over 300 other bodily processes. And if the body can't absorb or use the magnesium properly because of the statins, then that can obviously lead to a whole host of issues. And also how we use omega-3s. Also, we have seen that the brain really needs cholesterol, and that could explain potentially when we lower cholesterol levels that we get brain issues, memory issues. Yeah, so a lot of these things can be referred back to either the direct lowering of the cholesterol or to the interference with the uptake of essential nutrients for the body. Also, something to keep in mind, sometimes when we are told, oh, this is just aging, when people age, they get all these symptoms or menopause symptoms. That can often be a side effect from medication, or in this case, the statins. All right, Deanna, unless you have anything to add, I would hand over to you for the next slides.
Everything, move over. Okay, and just better. So moving on. So why omega-3 balance affects cholesterol, mood, and heart health. So we've learned that cholesterol isn't the enemy and the inflammation is. And one of the biggest things that controls inflammation inside the cell is our omega-3 to omega-6 balance. EPA is one of the active forms of omega-3, and that generally lowers inflammation and supports our heart health. And the DHA supports our brain, our hormones, and even our nervous system. So, mood, clarity, sleep, emotional well-being all depend on this. And here is the key point most people don't get is if you don't have enough usable EPA and DHA, your body will push cholesterol up to patch and protect the inflamed tissue. So that is why some people are eating perfectly or exercising, doing all the right things, but the cholesterol is still rising. So the environment inside the cells is still inflamed. So we also see that when the thyroid or the liver slow down, again, often linked to inflammation or just build up, cholesterol rises because the body cannot clear it properly. And this is the big one. Most people can't convert, which we've mentioned before, plant omega-3 into the form the body actually needs. So even when they think they're eating healthy, the usable omega-3 is still almost zero. Inflammation stays hidden and the cholesterol just keeps on rising. And this is why looking at the omega balance test gives us far more information than a standard blood test, like what your doctor would do. It shows what's happening at a cellular level, not just the bloodstream. And once that balance is restored, we often see inflammation drop and cholesterol naturally normalize, and people feel completely different mentally, physically, and emotionally. Is there anything you want to add to that one, Sonja?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
So the next slide, oh, it's not working, bear with me. Okay, so why many people stay inflamed on healthy diets. So this is explaining more about the omega-3 conversion problem. So one of the biggest reasons people get frustrated is that we've all been told to eat healthy fats, the chia seeds, the flax seeds, the walnuts, the plant omegas, but here's the part that no one really kind of knows or talks about is that the body has to convert plant omega-3, which is the ALA, into the usable forms, which is the EPA and DHA, and most adults convert less than 5%, and some people convert almost nothing. So the conversion gets blocked and really easily by things like stress, inflammation, the blood sugar spikes, the seed oils and omega-6 overload, remembering that we are eating far too much of the bad omega-6, uh, by gut issues, genetics, menopause, and hormonal shifts. So even if someone is eating all the right things, flax, chai, nuts, seeds, it doesn't guarantee the body is actually using any of it because of this conversion issue. People who eat really clean can still experience the chronic inflammation, the high cholesterol, hormone issues, joint pain, brain fog, low mood, heart rhythm problems. So the really important part is the standard blood tests that the doctors run, which is the CRP and ESR, often come back as normal. That's because the inflammation is happening actually in our cells, not in the bloodstream. So it's not floating around in the bloodstream. So the normal tests do not pick it up at all. So this is exactly why the omega balance is test is so powerful. It shows us what's actually happening inside the cells, your omega-3 levels, your omega-6 levels, and whether your body is truly in balance. Even if your GP bloods like look fine, you can be doing everything right and still be massively out of balance if you're not converting the omega-3 into EPA and DHA. Anything you'd like to add, Sonja, to that one before I move on?
Maybe just to add that if you consume ALA and you're very much out of balance, so let's say you have a lot more omega-6 than omega-3s, actually ALA might be even converted into omega-6. So you might actually increase the inflammation issue by eating things that contain ALA because the preferred pathway is to go into omega-6 rather than omega-3. So directly consuming the omega-3 in the form of EPA, DHA is something that for most people is absolutely essential.
Amazing. Thank you for that one, Sonja. Move on to. So let's talk about the actual real heart supporting foods and why natural fats actually matter. Because I think we've been told for so long that these are kind of the bad foods to for our body and to avoid. So when we give the body clean natural fats, things like the avocados, extra virgin olive oil, coconut oil, the grass-fed uh, butter and ghee, the body uses them for energy and hormone production, brain health, and stable blood sugar. These foods do not cause inflammation. They don't clog arteries. They actually help cholesterol move correctly around the body. The oily fish like salmon, sardines, anchovies, the mackerel, they give us the EPA and the DHA directly. These are the exact fatty acids the body needs to keep inflammation low and support the heart and stabilize the mood and help cholesterol behave properly. So for many of us, we don't eat enough fish at all, and it's a the sorry, bear with me. So yeah, we don't eat enough, so that's why the omega-6, although that's too high, the omega-3 is just non-existent. So and then why natural animal foods matter. So we've got grass-fed meats. We are what we eat. So if we're eating the grain-fed meats too, that again we're eating they can become a little bit toxic for us in comparison to the grass-fed meats. So we need the grass-fed meats, the organic eggs, the raw dairy, bone broths. These foods contain the amino acids and nutrients the heart literally runs on. So from vitamin K2, magnesium, the B vitamins, iron, these nutrients help the heart contract properly, repair tissue, maintain stable rhythm, and keep cholesterol transport functioning as it actually should. So the real problem isn't the saturated fat, it's the inflammation. And what actually raises the cholesterol in the wrong way is the processed oils, refined foods, the chronic stress, the blood sugar swings, and the modern imbalance between the omega-6 and omega-3. The traditional diets with plenty of natural fats consistently show better brain health, lower inflammation markers, better cholesterol patterns, and the body simply knows what to do with that real food. So when we focus on natural fats and not processed fats, and when we support that omega-3 balance, cholesterol naturally becomes far less sticky. The inflammation comes down, and the heart finally gets what it actually needs to function the way it's actually designed to do. Anything you want to add to that, Sonja, before I move on?
Yeah, and you have it here on the slides anyway. It's the heme iron that it's actually the bioavailable form of iron that you find only in animal foods. So the iron that's available in plants is often a non-heme version, and that just can't be absorbed by the body as well. So most of 95% of the iron you have in your body is in the heme form. And also the collagen, I just want to mention because we talk obviously about heart health, about artery health. Collagen is really what all these, it's basically the structure that everything is made of, and especially collagen type 1, which is the most abundant form of collagen that really holds everything together. And then collagen type 3 is the one that's especially important for the heart as well.
Thank you for adding that one. Move on. So, how to naturally balance cholesterol levels. So, cholesterol doesn't rise randomly. It's usually responding to the stress, the inflammation, and the environment we live in. So, these are the foundations that support our bodies in bringing things back into balance and gently and naturally, because that's what we want to do. So, we need to, as much as we can, reduce stress and calm the nervous system. The people that I work with or have been working with, this is the biggest thing, is the nervous system. Chronic stress is one of the biggest drivers of inflammation, and inflammation affects cholesterol. When the nervous system is overwhelmed, the body goes into uh, a repair mode. So, and that often means cholesterol rises to patch the inflamed tissues. Uh, we need to be grounding, slow mornings, breathing, being in nature, eating in a relaxed state. That helps improve digestion and lowers the stress hormones. Another tool that we quite often use with our customers or clients is essential oils that actually generally help calm the system. So we've got the lavender, the balance blend, carbaiba, frankincense, serenity. And then the helpful nutrients, which we've obviously covered quite a bit of, the magnesium, the omega-3, the B complexes, the vitamins, vitamin D, saffron. And then looking at the supporting mood and emotional health. So uh, mental load, grief and burnout, or overthinking, these are all increase inflammation internally. So when we support the emotional body, cholesterol naturally responds too. So, we need to gratitude practice, journaling, the three good things exercise. We need social support, connection, community, moving our emotions through the body, walking, stretching, dancing, things that kind of really lift us up. It brings us kind of joy. So, and we've got the uplifting oils, wild orange, the citrus oils like lemon, bergamot, frankincense, and then the nutrients again, omega-3, B vitamins, magnesium, vitamin D, saffron again. And then the clean natural fats, which we've covered, but it's so huge for our balancing our cholesterol levels. So the grass-fed meats, the eggs, the raw dairy, the oily fish, the bone broths, organ meats, avocados, olives, coconut oil, grass-fed butter and ghee. These foods support the energy and hormones, the healthy cell membranes, and help the body transport the actual cholesterol properly. The problem isn't the saturated fat. Again, it's the inflammation and the industrial seed oils and the processed foods. Balancing cholesterol is never about restriction. It's about nourishment and the reducing the inflammation and supporting the body so it doesn't feel like it's constantly in repair mode. And when the foundations are there, cholesterol naturally finds its rhythm again. Okay. Anything to that, Sonja, before we move on?
Fantastic.
16 now. Okay, so how to naturally balance cholesterol part 2. So we're going to continue with the practical and gentle things that support the cholesterol balance without the fear and without restriction, and definitely without extreme dieting, because we don't do the extreme dieting. So we've got the fruit and veg intake. The goal here is to support and not to overwhelm. Juices and smoothies can absolutely be great, but only if they're freshly made. Otherwise, the sugar spikes are far too quick. The sugar spikes far too quickly. So most people actually do better with cooked vegetables as well, rather than the raw, because they're easier to digest and don't trigger the bloating or blood sugar swings. And when it comes to fruit, choosing the lower sugar options helps keep insulin calm. Things like berries, kiwi, pears, these help support the liver and hormones, which directly influence cholesterol. Movement and lifestyle. So we don't need hardcore workouts and the gym to support cholesterol. In fact, they can actually even backfire if your nervous system is already stressed. We need gentle movement, walking, especially in nature, stretching, yoga. These are some of the most powerful tools for reducing inflammation. Sunlight is another big one. Vitamin D helps regulate hundreds of processes, including mood, hormones, and heart health. I know that can be hard sometimes in the UK, but another one, obviously, avoiding smoking, vaping, and recreational substances really matter because they directly increase the oxidative stress and push cholesterol higher. And then reducing inflammation. It's never really about cholesterol, it's about why the cholesterol is going up. When inflammation rises, cholesterol rises with it. So we support the foundations, again, avoiding the seed oils, the industrial oils, avoid trans fats and processed foods, prioritizing spices, herbs, foods that naturally calm inflammation, and quality of sleep, probably the most underrated heart supporting tool. And then moving on to the helpful nutrients. So we have vitamin D3 for immune regulation, vitamin C as an antioxidant, magnesium for blood pressure and nervous system support, the collagen to help repair connective tissue and vessel health. We've got the CQ10 because cholesterol lowering medications deplete that. Omega-3 balance oil, and this is the bigger one, is literally helps rebuild the cell membrane, supports heart rhythm, stabilizes inflammation, and supports cholesterol transport. And as we've covered earlier, most plant-3 omega-3s don't convert properly. So this is why so many people look like they're eating healthy, but they're still inflamed within the cells. So all of these pieces layered together, they calm the nervous system, the lower inflammation, they nourish the cells and support the heart with real food and meaningful nutrients. Cholesterol naturally comes back into balance when the body feels safe and supported. Anything else to that, Sonja?
Yeah, I mean, you explained that wonderfully. And just to emphasize, obviously, we would always try to get all the nutrients we need from the diet, from a whole food diet, wherever possible. If you need to take supplements, then We would emphasize that it's important to use natural supplements. So, for example, with vitamin C, it would be an extract from a cherry rather than citric acid or other forms, or ascorbic acid, so forms that are chemically processed. Obviously, although we try to get everything from the diet, it's not always feasible. And especially when it comes to the omega-3s in the forms of EPA and DHA, it might be difficult to eat a daily portion of fish or to eat those specific algae every day to really cover your levels. And that's why on the next slide, we would like to talk a little bit more about the omega-3 balance oil and also about the omega-3 test that we already mentioned a few times on the previous slide. So you have a little bit of a better idea what we mean by those. Go. So yeah, we think that this can be a really helpful tool when it comes to inflammation in the body in general, but also when it comes to getting to normal cholesterol levels. So it kind of brings together all the different topics that we talked about today, and it's really part of this holistic approach of having this healthy lifestyle that supports your heart health, your metabolic health, and the balance concept is consists of two aspects. One is the balance test, and then the other one is the balance oil. The balance test, it's a home health test that works with a finger prick. And what it does, it measures 11 different fatty acids, among them omega-3 and omega-6, but also other essential fatty acids. You get also a range of markers to say, okay, what is your inflammation status? How fluid are your cell membranes? Because as Deanna was mentioning previously, it's not just about what's going on in your blood. It's about what can actually penetrate from the blood into the cells. Because if your cell membranes are very rigid, which can happen if there's too much omega-6 in comparison to omega-3, the nutrients literally can't cross the cell membrane to get into the cell where the nutrients are actually needed. So we need to have a cell membrane that has the fluidity to let things go in and out. Also, it reveals the omega-3 to 6 ratio. The average ratio at the moment in Europe is 15:1, when ideally we would want 1:1. That would be the perfect ratio. We strive to get a 3:1 ratio of omega-6 to omega-3s. Also, you would get your overall omega-3 level. For most people, this level is around 4%, and we would ideally strive to have at least 8% or even 10%. Why is that relevant for cholesterol? As we mentioned, it's related to your inflammation. It's related to how well your cells can absorb different nutrients. It's also related to the fat processing. So if you can see your whole fatty acid profile in your blood, you can then see, okay, maybe in your diet overall, there are a lot of different fatty acids. Maybe you need a bit more of these and a bit less of something else. Also, it can help you to track the progress. People might already take omega-3 supplements. So it's a way of testing of whether the omega supplement that someone is taking is actually working. I've recently compared probably over 100 omega-3 supplements to date. And what I find is that only very few oils report what is called the oxidative, or sometimes called also the oil stability index. That means, so omega-3 is a polyunsaturated fatty acid, meaning it is not stable by itself. It very quickly oxidizes, especially when it gets exposed to a higher temperature. So what might happen is that during either the manufacturing process or during shipping, when you store it or when you consume it, it is exposed to body temperature, and it takes up to 24 hours for the omega-3 fatty acid after intake to actually reach the cell and to be taken up there by the cell and to be used. So we really need, if you think about an omega-3 supplement, we need one that is stable enough to be fresh in the bottle, but also to remain fresh until it actually reaches the cells. And this is where a formula comes in. that is test-based because it's based on over, I think we're almost at 1.6 million tests now worldwide, which combines the omega-3 from fish or from algae, so there's a vegan version as well, with polyphenols of a special type of extra virgin olive oil. And that together provides a protection against heat. So it reduces the oxidation of the product, and it means it remains fresh in the body for the cells to be taken up. So this has provided to be a very effective formula and a very effective way of using omega-3s. And what can then be done is people can take a balance test and see their current omega-3 ratio, whether they already take a supplement or not. I've been taking a supplement when I did the test, and I was still nowhere near the 3:1. Then people can take the omega-3 oil, the balance oil, and then after 120 days, for example, people can retake the test. And then ideally, the omega-6 to 3 ratio would reduce and would go towards the 3:1. And we want to see the omega-3 levels to rise. We want to get the cell membrane fluidity better, so the nutrients can go in and out of the cells. We want to get inflammation lowered. And also we want to, with this way, also improve the cholesterol levels. So there is a whole host of potential beneficial effects that this can have. And as Deanna obviously explained, because it contains EPA and DHA, it's supportive of normal brain and heart function, and also it's good for the eyes as well. So quite a few beneficial effects that are possible. We hope that this presentation really helped to bring together a few different strands of cholesterol. And as you might have seen, it's a much larger topic as soon as you integrate all these different perspectives. Yeah, you can go to the next slide, Deanna, that's all right. I'm transitioning into that slide. And to really understand your body a bit better, understand a bit better what do the omega-3, the cholesterol levels mean, how can you reduce the inflammation that is underlying potentially the high cholesterol levels, but also the atherosclerosis, and how can you really reclaim your health and really integrate that into a healthy lifestyle. If you found this useful, we will stay on and have time for questions that you have. But also, we will send you some information afterwards, and we will also make the presentation available to you, and also send you some other relevant information, also further readings if you want to know more about any of the topics that we have covered. You can reach out to us, so you see Deanna's and my information here on the right-hand side. We are available. We have websites, email, WhatsApp, or you can also reach out to us if you want to have a free consultation. So we give consultations on holistic healing, supplements, essential oils. So yeah, obviously important, like the medical here to replace your doctor, but we are here to really support you on a health journey. And we would be very happy to do that with you. Yeah, it's I think that one important aspect I want to emphasize here, it's not a one size fits all. It's not here is one pill and that's going to work for you and it's now going to make you healthy again. But it's really about looking at the specific conditions, lifestyle, situations in life, and see how can support be done, how can things be tailored to what works for you. I think that is something we always find with the different clients that we work with, that we always need to target things and see, okay, this works for one person, this doesn't work for someone else, and always take that into account, that we have this individual-centered focus when we do our work. Is there anything else you would like to add, Deanna, before we stop the recording and then go into the Q&A part?
No, I think we've covered everything. What I need to do is, yeah, stop the recording. And then with regards to the Q&A, if you don't want to talk, you can just do it through the chat box. Or if you want to take yourself off mute, you can do it that way, whatever you feel comfortable with. Okay, I'm just gonna find See if I can get
so I
this.
will stop the recording so you can really talk in a safe space without being on the recording later on. But we will make the recording available to you, which is just the presentation that we have just provided. Just waiting a moment.